Where are you now, when our daughter has been rushed to the hospital with serious injuries? Panicking after receiving a call from the hospital while on a business trip, I contacted my husband. Our 5-year-old daughter had happily talked about having a picnic in the park with Daddy over the phone. And now, she had fallen from high playground equipment in the park and was unconscious.
Just wait a minute. I'm in the middle of a business meeting at the office.
On the other end of the phone, my husband also started to panic for some reason. Our conversation was not making sense, and both of us were confused. In the flow of the conversation, my husband mentioned a certain person's name. As soon as I heard it, the blood drained from my face. Since we both worked, our daughter, Karen, went to daycare. Despite our busy lives with work, housework, and childcare, we enjoyed our life as a family of 3, cooperating with each other. My in-laws were nice people and adored our daughter. Except for one person. Her name was Sophia, 3 years younger than me, living at her parents' house while working a temp job. So, when we visited my husband's parents' house, we often saw her.
Shall we head back? We'll come to visit again. Hey, Karen, say bye to Sophia.
Bye, Sophia. As we were leaving, Karen only glanced at my smiling sister-in-law before quickly hiding behind me.
Sorry, she's a bit shy. It's totally fine. Don't worry about it.
Even if my daughter behaved rudely, Sophia always brushed it off like this. But that was only in front of my husband or parents. Afterwards, she smiled only at my husband, saying, "Come visit again, Hugo." She didn't even glance my way as I apologized. The last Hugo sounded oddly emphasized, or is it just me overthinking? Actually, Sophia and I attended the same university. However, we didn't know each other during our student days, and I don't know much about her from that time. One thing is clear, she doesn't seem to like me much. Even this time, if my husband hadn't been there, she would have said something like, "Can't even greet properly at her age," with a hint of sarcasm. Sophia behaves normally towards me and my daughter in front of my husband or parents. But the treatment we get when we're alone with her is cold. This was evident when my daughter had a fever and was suddenly called from daycare, and I asked my mother-in-law to pick her up.
You asked our parents to pick her up again? It's a nuisance if she passes on her cold or something.
I'm sorry. I had an unavoidable meeting.
Yeah, there it is. Think everything's excused if it's for work? My mom's not young anymore, don't overburden her, okay? I'm not free either.
Indeed, we did rely on my in-laws for our daughter, but we always tried to keep it to a minimum and properly thanked them afterwards. And I've never inconvenienced Sophia, at least.
Oh, sorry. Compared to a full-time working mom with a kid, me and my retired parents must seem pretty free to you, huh?
Sophia sneered, looking at me with a twisted mouth. Nobody said that. Because she always behaved this way only in front of me and my daughter, Karen became wary of Sophia. I suppose she didn't find that amusing. It's natural to have people you don't get along with, and for me and my daughter, that was Sophia. I've tried to keep my distance from Sophia as much as possible, continuing the family relationship without causing trouble. I didn't want to complain to my husband or in-laws about Sophia and risk her bearing a grudge. Considering that, the daily sarcasm seemed trivial. That was until I had to go on a business trip out of state for 5 days due to work. During this period, my husband was supposed to take care of our daughter. My in-laws were away on a trip, so it was tough for my husband, but he was eager, saying he'd go through it. True to his word, he managed the hectic weekdays, and tomorrow was the last day of my trip. I was on the phone with Karen, who had just returned from daycare.
What are you gonna do tomorrow?
Guess what? Daddy and I are gonna have a picnic at the big park. Over the phone, I could hear my daughter excitedly talking about what she was going to do tomorrow. We'll eat lunch and I want to do the obstacle course too.
That sounds fun, honey. Mama will be back tomorrow night. Just make sure you do the obstacle course with Daddy, it can be dangerous.
After hearing my daughter's energetic reply, I ended the call. Karen looked so happy. Hugo must have been doing a great job. I decided to make my husband's favorite dishes when I got back. I thought about playing a lot with my daughter, considering she might have felt lonely. Little did I know, something like that was going to happen. I couldn't have imagined it at the time. It was the afternoon of the next day, as I was about to finish my last task at work. A colleague, with a grave look on their face, passed me a phone call. Rushing to answer, the caller was from the general hospital in our area. "Your daughter has been injured and brought in by ambulance. She's unconscious, please come immediately," they told me.
What do you mean? Where's my husband?
Confused and struggling to find words, I learned that there were no guardians at the scene of Karen's accident. A nearby parent and child had called for an ambulance. My contact information was in my daughter's belongings, so the hospital had called me. Where could Hugo have gone? I tried to contact my husband immediately. However, no matter how many times I called, he didn't answer. After explaining the situation to my boss, they told me, "Don't worry about work, go to your daughter right away." Grateful for their understanding, I hurriedly left work for the hospital. On the way back, I kept calling my husband and finally got through.
What's happening? Why are you so frantic? There's no time for that. Karen is injured and in the hospital. Where are you and what are you doing?
His voice was too calm through the phone, which made me raise my voice without realizing.
How could this happen while you were supposed to be with her? Just wait a minute. I'm in the middle of a business meeting at the office. What?
His unexpected reply only added to my confusion. It was a holiday today, and he was supposed to be spending it with our daughter.
You're working? What are you talking about? You said you were going to the park with Karen today. But didn't Sophia contact you?
Hearing that name made me freeze on the spot.
Why would Sophia be involved?
Barely managing to utter those words, my husband began to realize the gravity of the situation. Regaining a bit of composure, I explained our daughter's condition and heard the full story from him. A little after our call ended yesterday. While preparing dinner, he received a call from his boss. Apparently, a big deal came through, and you're the only one who can handle it, he was told and couldn't refuse. Desperate, he tried contacting his parents, but of course, they couldn't return from their trip immediately. That's when Sophia called, seemingly perfect timing.
I heard from Mom and Dad. You got caught up with work all of a sudden? I'm free tomorrow, so I can take care of Karen.
Seemingly concerned for my troubled husband, my in-laws must have informed Sophia.
A picnic at the park? Then, I'll have to make lunch too,
she said, willingly taking on the responsibility of caring for our daughter. I'll contact Natalia, so don't worry, she said, leading him to believe I was informed. Under those circumstances, to my husband, it must have felt like a relief. But hearing the whole story, I felt a chill run down my spine.
Karen, did she resist?
I couldn't help but ask. Being alone with Sophia, who was only kind in front of her father. I'm sure my 5-year-old daughter had her suspicions.
She was crying, wanting to go with Daddy. But, since Sophia was kind enough to come over, I told her not to be selfish. I never imagined something like this would happen.
The conversation with my husband ended awkwardly, and I hung up. Upon arriving at the hospital, I was immediately directed to the ICU. Karen had fallen from high playground equipment and hit her head, still unconscious. When the doctor said there's no danger to her life, but she might have lasting effects, I nearly collapsed from despair. If only I had contacted Hugo one more time this morning. If only I hadn't taken on that business trip. Despite knowing there was nothing I could do about it now, those thoughts kept swirling around in my head. How much time had passed? While I was standing there dazed, my husband arrived at the hospital, and it seemed he had also contacted Sophia.
Is Karen okay? Is she safe? Hey, is she all right?
Sophia, who appeared before us, was sobbing and worried about our daughter.
I just took my eyes off her for a moment to go to the bathroom. I told her I'd be right back.
Before we could say anything, she started making excuses.
But that's just an excuse, isn't it? It's my fault for not watching her properly. I'm really sorry.
After saying what she wanted to, Sophia just cried, leaving no room for us to blame her.
Why didn't you come to the hospital sooner? I got a call from Hugo, and you're only getting here now.
I struggled to keep my voice steady, trembling with anger.
I've been looking for Karen the whole time. The park was too big, and I couldn't find her.
Considering she had been searching the vast park, it was odd that her clothes weren't dirty, and even stranger that she didn't notice the commotion when the ambulance arrived. Honestly, my only thought was, how could she? But pointing that out now would only lead to her dodging the issue.
Hugo said he told you to contact me, didn't he? I haven't heard anything? Well, I thought, since you were busy with work, I didn't want to bother you.
Watching Sophia choke up her words and act as if she was afraid of me, my anger only grew.
Hey, calm down, Natalia. She's already feeling sorry, and it wasn't on purpose. Don't be too hard on Sophia.
My husband began to defend his sister, seemingly feeling pity for her. What? It's like I'm the bad guy here. I took a deep breath and simply said, okay. Thinking she had been forgiven, Sophia repeated I'm sorry, covered her face with her hands, and started to sob again. But I didn't miss it. The moment she brought her hands to her face, Sophia glanced at me and quietly smirked. After Sophia left, I confronted my husband.
Do you really believe what Sophia said? Do you truly think she was watching Karen properly?
What do you mean?
I mean, it doesn't make sense. And I saw it, for a moment she...
Calm down. Natalia, you're probably just tired. I know you want to blame someone, but Sophia didn't mean any harm. He was interrupted by the doctor coming out of the treatment room. Hearing your daughter has regained consciousness brought tears of relief to my eyes. Karen could speak, but her memory of the events leading up to and following the injury was hazy.
Karen, do you understand? It's Mom.
Mom. Where am I? My head hurts. This was supposed to be a fun day. Seeing my daughter lying in bed made me feel sorry for her all over again. You went to play with Sophia, but then you got hurt and came here. It's all okay now. Sophia. Is Sophia here? No, she's not here. Karen, what did you do today with her? I forgot. After that, she stopped talking, pulled the blanket over her head, and started to shiver. It was a gesture Karen always made when she was afraid of something. Is she afraid of Sophia? Did she do something to her? Because of her memory issues, my daughter was scheduled to stay in the hospital for a few days for tests. On the way home, I tried telling my husband, Karen seems to be afraid of Sophia, but he dismissed it the same way as before, saying I was overthinking it. If only there was some evidence, it might convince him to keep Karen away from Sophia. Without any belief from him, I needed evidence of Sophia's true nature to show my husband, for our daughter's sake. Later, I reached out to a junior from my college days. She was part of the same circle as Sophia back then and knew her well. She always had to be number one, a troublesome kid. Friends? As if she could have any. With a liar like that, the disdainful voice of my junior, clearly fed up, is something I won't forget anytime soon. From her, I got Sophia's social media account information. Furthermore, I checked the contents of the cell phone my daughter loves to use for kids. Lately, whenever we go out, Karen always carries this phone with her, capturing videos of the scenery and conversations with people she's with. It's become her latest craze. There might be evidence in here of Sophia treating my daughter coldly, that would be a rare find. That's what I thought, lightly. Until I saw the videos recorded on it. To put it bluntly, my suspicions were confirmed. But it wasn't just about exposing her true nature anymore. On the third day of my daughter's hospitalization. On a holiday morning, my husband and I visited his parents' house, and we arranged for them to go visit our daughter in the hospital with him. Using the excuse that it would be bothersome to go to the hospital in a large group, I stayed behind. In the living room, Sophia was leisurely sipping coffee. "Hello, Natalia. How's Karen since then?" "She's much better. She might be able to leave the hospital soon." "That's good to hear." Sophia, with her eyebrows furrowed in an exaggerated, theatrical voice, feigned relief. "What's good about it? Which mouth of yours is saying that?" As usual, Sophia plays the part of the good sister-in-law in front of the parents and my husband. I matched her act, putting on my best kind sister-in-law performance.
"Well, we're off to the hospital then,"
said my husband as the three of them left the house, and both Sophia and I waved them off with a smile. Once it was just the two of us, as expected, Sophia's attitude changed completely.
"What do you want? You didn't stay to make small talk, did you?"
I faced her squarely, resting her cheek in her hand, clearly annoyed.
"Could you apologize to Karen? And I want you to take responsibility for what happened this time."
"Huh? What's that supposed to mean?"
"It's your daughter who's at fault for not following instructions and acting on her own, isn't it? And you think you can keep up that lie forever?"
I confronted Sophia with copies of her social media posts. They included a post saying, "Woke up early to make this for my boyfriend today," accompanied by a photo of Sophia happily sharing a lunchbox with a man. I also showed her all the posts from that day, detailing shopping and dinner outings.
This was the day you were supposed to be looking after Karen. You left her in the park to go on a date with your boyfriend.
The story of her searching for my daughter all along was a fabrication, evidenced by these photos. As Sophia looked over each photo, her expression darkened for a moment before she scoffed and tossed the documents aside.
"What's this supposed to prove? The date on a post can be changed with settings, you know?"
Indeed, as Sophia said, the evidence might not be conclusive. People often deliberately change the timeline of their posts to prevent their personal information and private life from being fully exposed.
"This boyfriend of yours, he's an old circle friend, isn't he? I heard from my junior." "Wow, you went out of your way to contact someone just to dig up dirt on me. You must be really bored."
Sophia laughed mockingly at me, clearly showing no remorse. Such an attitude of belittlement.
"Whether the post date and the actual photo-taking day match, we can find out by checking with this guy through my junior. So what if I have a boyfriend and went to the park with him? What's wrong with that? So you admit to babysitting while on a date? Who I ask to help babysit is my business, isn't it?"
With that selfish remark, Sophia turned away. "So, in the end, you want to say it's Karen's fault for not following instructions, not yours at all?" Confirming that in my mind, I silently nodded.
"Anyway, no matter what you say, my parents and brother won't believe you. So, you're planning to align your story with your boyfriend and erase the posts to cover it up?"
"I suppose you would do that."
"No need for such tricks. It's obvious they'll believe me, a family member, over someone else like you."
Sophia said this with a face full of conviction, sure of her victory. But her ability to maintain that attitude ended there.
"I think they'll believe this,"
I said as I pulled out my cell phone and played one video.
"What's this?"
Upon hearing the audio from the video, Sophia's face, previously confident, turned to shock as she stared at the screen. What was shown was the truth of that day, recorded by my daughter. The video captured the surrounding scenery and, clearly, Sophia's voice berating my daughter repeatedly. "Stop fussing over flowers and hurry up. You're so slow," Sophia yelled. Then came Karen's trembling voice, "I'm sorry." Sophia also filled my daughter's head with insults about me and threatened her if she dared to talk back, "Shut up. If you talk back again, I'll leave you behind." The footage that followed only showed Karen's feet walking slowly, likely too scared to even look up at Sophia. After a while, the video showed Sophia rushing off to a man, laying out a leisure sheet, and starting to eat without paying any mind to my daughter. When Karen tried to eat some side dishes, Sophia snapped, "Don't touch it, it's dirty. It wasn't made for you," pushing Karen's hand away. Then, as if she had an idea, Sophia smiled at Karen, "Hey, do you want to go back to your mom and dad?" Upon Karen's nod, Sophia suggested, "Let's play a game then. If you can get to the top of that playground equipment alone, I'll take you home," pointing to the park's largest playground structure. The video ended as Karen headed towards it. When my husband and I reviewed this footage yesterday, I couldn't count how many times I cried. After watching all the videos, Sophia was trembling, but soon she slammed the table forcefully and stood up.
What is this? Are you threatening me with a child's video? You're insane.
You're trying to pin this on me and Hugo, making it seem like you knew Karen would get hurt.
It's just your daughter who was stupid enough to fall for it.
In a fit of rage, Sophia snatched the cell phone from me and, unbelievably, smashed it against the wall. The screen shattered, and the internals were exposed, clearly beyond repair. With a face red with anger and breathing heavily, Sophia smirked.
Now you have no evidence. Serves you right.
Her expression was the epitome of evil. But to me, her attitude felt almost comforting. Yes, keep yelling. Show your true, vile nature even more. I was afraid my heart would be filled with darkness if I let my guard down. So, before that happened, I decided to stop her. She admit to leaving Karen in danger knowingly, Hugo? I said, pulling out a second cell phone from my pocket. Pressing the speaker button, the enraged voices of my in-laws and husband were heard.
Wait. Hugo, Dad, Mom. Why?
I've had the phone on this whole time. They've been listening to everything. And you'll be paying for the phone you broke. It's mine, after all.
But
what Sophia didn't know was that the video she saw was a copy. The original was safely with my husband.
There's no way I'd bring our daughter's important phone here. I suspected you might do something, but I didn't think you'd smash it. It was just a joke. I didn't think Karen would take it seriously. I never imagined she'd actually climb up there.
Sophia, now pale-faced, started making excuses, her voice a mix of apologies and attempts at manipulation.
Karen fell, and I was so scared. I couldn't do anything, and when the ambulance arrived, I just ran away. I'm sorry.
Tears filled her eyes as she meekly apologized, trying to elicit sympathy. Of course, no one was falling for it anymore. Realizing she had no way out, Sophia turned her anger towards me again.
Don't look at me like that. It's all your fault. You, your daughter, my brother, my parents, you took everything from me.
Stop making ridiculous accusations.
Shut up. Just because you're a little good at your job and had a kid, everyone fusses over you. It makes me sick. You and your daughter.
As Sophia started to lash out, I was at a loss for words. Just then, at that very moment, my in-laws, who had been waiting in the car, came into the room. Thanks to my father-in-law scolding Sophia, thankfully, no hands were laid on me. I've been given permission to do as I please with her. I decided to take them up on their offer. I will be filing a police report, I declared, and my in-laws agreed without hesitation. Seeing them nod without any reluctance, Sophia began to cry for real and clung to my feet.
Wait. I understand. I'll apologize. I'll apologize to Karen. Please don't report this to the police. Please.
Those pleading eyes, looking up at me, she must have been manipulating people like this since she was a child. If you had admitted what you did from the start, I would have given you a chance to apologize. I thought to myself, looking at her as if she were trash. But now, I've lost that feeling. I will never forgive someone like you. You will face the full extent of the law. I believe this was the only time I ever treated someone with such cold disdain. I simply looked down silently at my sister-in-law, kneeling and slumped over. My memory of what happened next is vague, and I don't quite remember how we left my husband's family home. Next thing I knew, I was with my husband in our daughter's hospital room.
Mom, what happened?
Are you okay? Karen's voice finally brought me some peace. We filed the police report that very day. As a result, Sophia was subjected to legal punishment. I had thought our chances were slim since Sophia hadn't directly harmed her, but the police said the videos my daughter took and the call records I had let my husband listen to were decisive. Thanks to that evidence, they could prove Sophia had maliciously put my daughter in danger, thinking it was okay if she got hurt. Though she wouldn't be behind bars for more than a year, for someone with her princess attitude, it must have been quite a shock. My in-laws decided to disown Sophia, sold their house, and moved away, ensuring she wouldn't have a family to return to after serving her sentence. Karen, fortunately, didn't suffer any notable aftereffects and was discharged from the hospital without issue.
Grandpa, Grandma, I want this pink one.
Next spring, Karen will start elementary school. Choosing a backpack with her grandparents, she's as lively as ever today. My name is Rachel, and I'm 38 years old. I got divorced 6 years ago and remarried 3 years back. Me, my first hubby Dan, and my current hubby, Lewis, we all worked together at Smith Foods. Dan and Lewis were like oil and water, always competing, but they both really gave their all for the company. After me and Dan decided to tie the knot, I quit my job. The next year, our little girl Julie came into our world. Our marriage was like a fairy tale, at least for the first 5 years. Then things started to go south. Dan fell head over heels for a gal 10 years his junior, named Natalie. He hardly ever came home, and it tore me up. Eventually, I decided to divorce him. I've been a single mom to Julie ever since. While Dan was off with his new flame, Lewis, bless his heart, reached out to me worried. We started talking, not just about Dan, and before we knew it, we ended up tying the knot. Lewis never let on that he was the big boss's son at the office. I didn't have a clue until after we got married. Turns out, my second marriage was like hitting the jackpot. Julie and I have been living the high life. Not long ago, we went skiing in Switzerland. Poor Julie had an accident and now she's in a wheelchair. While I was dropping her off at school, I saw someone at the gate. It was Dan. My ex, who left me for another woman 6 years ago. Thought remarriage was a miracle for you. But look at you now, back to a life of misery. It's almost funny. Then Lewis rolls up in his fancy car, and Dan's face just goes white as a sheet.
What? Lewis? Driving such a fancy car?
Lewis is the son of the president of Smith Foods. He's about to become the youngest president in the company's history. Talk about a plot twist, huh? I wanted to share the life journey that led me to this point of happiness.
The company's huge, isn't it? Didn't seem this big when we first interviewed?
It's a long-standing food company. It's still growing and listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Dan, Lewis, and I joined Smith Foods and were assigned to the PR department. On our first day, Dan wouldn't stop talking, and we planned to grab some drinks to get to know each other better.
Man, your French is incredible.
My dad's background is French. I was born and raised right here in the US.
Rachel, I heard you're also fluent in French. Did you grow up abroad?
I've always been fond of French. I studied it more in the Global Studies program at college.
Wow, I can't speak a lick of it, but somehow I still got hired. Guess I'm lucky.
Being in the same starting group, me, Dan, and Lewis would often go out for drinks. We got pretty close. But Dan, getting greedier by the day, started to see Lewis as his rival. Doesn't it seem like Lewis is the boss's pet? He's even on the cover of our PR magazine. Sure, he's good-looking with a tall stature. I can give him that. But a regular employee, acting like a model? And he's always in the spotlight at work, like he's the face of the company. If they gave me a chance, I could outdo him. I don't want to lose to him, not in work, not in anything. I don't think Lewis cares about winning or losing. He's just doing what's asked of him. He even said he's tired of being judged by his looks alone. Do you and Lewis ever go out for drinks, just the two of you? Well, if he invites me. Around this time, it seems Dan started to have feelings for me. I had a sense of it but pretended not to notice as there were no clear words or actions from him. The three of us, Dan, Lewis, and I, grew closer both at work and in our private lives, inspiring and challenging each other. 2 years after joining Smith Foods, Dan asked me out.
What should I do? How should I respond?
Maybe I was being the villain here, but I talked to Lewis about Dan.
If you don't dislike him, why not go out with him? I respect Dan and think he's a good guy. He could make you happy.
Dan was a man of intense but transient passions. His tendency to get completely absorbed in something was somewhat frightening. But I gave an honest okay to Dan, who had expressed his feelings directly. Dan and I got married when we were 25. I left my job to focus on family life. It's a shame you're leaving. You had the potential to be a career woman. You're always attentive to details others miss, finishing tasks before they're even requested. It's really a waste.
Thank you. You're the only one who appreciates me that way. Contact me anytime if you need anything. Though, I think Dan will take good care of you. If he ever cheats, I'll be right there to give him a piece of my mind.
Lewis said lightly, a statement I would come to remember.
Dan, if you're going to be late, at least let me know. Dinner's going to waste.
Stop nagging.
It's because of your constant complaining that I don't want to come home. Don't forget, Julie has her school play tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
I've got plans, but I can't make them. What? I told you to keep your schedule free ages ago. Julie's looking forward to you being there.
6 years into our marriage. Our daughter Julie is now 5. The once doting father, Dan, had changed completely. I wondered what caused it. Was it because he knew I was aware of his affair? Dan was boldly enjoying his time with his mistress. This mistress was a piece of work, shamelessly bragging and belittling me, his wife.
Oh, tomorrow's your mistress's birthday, right? You withdrew savings for a brand accessory gift, didn't you? I saw her bragging about it on social media. Her family's wealthy, right? Her dad's a company president? So why are you spoiling her? Are you being played? It's creepy how you snoop around.
I got this information from a junior at Smith Foods, Bob, who had taken a liking to me and admired me. Dan was apparently proud of having a mistress. He blabbered and boasted about things I didn't even ask. I heard you met her at her cafe at the station. She was so cute that you gave her your number, hoping for a chance. And she contacted you first, right? That woman, either she's not used to attention or she's overly confident. And she's just in her 20s, right? I doubt she's serious about you. I'm not a lost cause yet. Dan declared defiantly, choosing to be open rather than hide. So, you frequented her cafe every day, and it paid off.
Don't you realize you get too obsessed with one thing and lose sight of everything else? I've always been devoted. Did you know your mistress has been harassing me? It's pretty serious slander. If I take this to a lawyer, it could be a legal case. She's posting on my social media, calling me horrible names, accusing me of not doing housework, of cheating. She's spreading lies. The other moms at Julie's kindergarten have seen it, and now they treat me like a pariah. If this continues, I'm going to take action. Reacting to such trivial stuff and getting all worked up? Are you a child? Stop making a fuss, it's tiring. I'm going to take a shower and sleep.
But the situation worsened. Rachel? It's me, Lewis. Out of the blue, I received a call from Lewis. It had been a while since I heard his voice, as I had left my job for family life. And Dan rarely spoke about work, let alone about Lewis.
Lewis! It's been a while. How are you? Actually, Dan has been absent without notice for the past few days. I was wondering if he's sick or something.
Dan hadn't been coming home for the last few days, and now he wasn't even showing up at work. But I couldn't bring myself to tell Lewis about this embarrassing situation.
Well, maybe he's not feeling well. Sorry about that. I'll make sure he contacts the office. Are you okay?
Lewis asked, his concern almost bringing me to tears. I wanted to confide everything in him. To have someone sympathize and comfort me.
If it's going to be a long absence, I really need him to let us know. Right now, Dan, me, and 3 others are handling a big project. He is the group leader. Honestly, we can't proceed without him.
I'm sorry for the trouble he's causing everyone.
I guess he'll have to step down from this project then, if it's holding things up.
I'll pass the message to Dan, I said, realizing the severity of the impact on his work. I felt helpless, knowing there was nothing more I could do. I tried calling Dan, though I expected no answer. My emails were being ignored, and the phone calls went unanswered. Hello? To my surprise, it wasn't Dan, but his mistress who answered. Oh, it's his wife.
Dan's in the shower, can't come to the phone. Do you have a message for him? Is my husband staying at your place? Yeah, he stays here most of the time, occasionally at a hotel, but mostly at my place.
Are you keeping him from going to work? Are you the possessive type? Dan's planning to quit his current job for a new opportunity.
What? I haven't heard anything about that.
Maybe he can't be honest with you?
He says you're scared when you're angry. He told me he's often left wandering the streets at night because you won't let him in.
She was spouting all sorts of things, lies Dan had probably told her to make it seem like their marriage was failing. A typical tactic of an unfaithful husband.
My father owns a business.
Dan's going to take over as president soon.
It's a great opportunity he wouldn't want to miss. Men want to be at the top, don't they? That's something you couldn't give him. I can make him a president. That's part of my charm.
Her father's business, a cafe, was just a small shop in front of the station. They were planning to expand into a chain. But I wondered if becoming president of such a business was really what Dan wanted. Given his aspirations when we first joined Smith Foods.
Why don't you just file for divorce?
Dan doesn't come home or go to work, so what's the point of staying married?
It's not that simple. We have a daughter, Julie. Are you the one keeping Dan from coming home?
What? No way.
He approached me first, and I reluctantly responded. I'm with him because he listens to me. I wasn't planning to marry, but my dad was looking for a successor.
Dan just happened to be there. He's lucky, isn't he?
Getting to marry someone 10 years younger and become a president.
Of course, he wouldn't want to go back to you. I could almost see her smug face. I had checked her social media. She was the typical influencer type, flaunting her lavish lifestyle with branded goods. She's deliberately posting with the prices included. It seems like she's being supported by young women who aspire to be like Natalie.
Sorry to bother you again. Today, Dan's agent contacted me. He wants to resign. Probably hired one of those famous resignation services. It's kind of unmanly for him, isn't it? So, he's officially resigned, but what are you planning to do with him?
It's likely going to end in divorce.
Divorce? It's come to that?
The truth is, Dan doesn't plan to come home anymore. He's been at his mistress's place for almost a month, no contact, not coming home.
What? It's gotten that bad? That's serious.
Divorcing now, when my daughter Julie is just about to start school, would hurt her, wouldn't it? I tried to envision us getting back together, but it's impossible now. Dan has completely moved on to his mistress.
Dan has always been the type to forge ahead once he makes up his mind, not listening to others.
That's why I think he left everything behind to be with her, kind of like eloping.
If there's anything I can do, don't hesitate to ask.
Thank you. Since then, I often found myself turning to Lewis for advice. Even on the day I signed the divorce papers, I instinctively called him.
I'm disappointed in Dan. He always said he would never cheat. Aren't you about the age to start thinking about marriage? Don't you have someone special? No, not really. I think I'm okay with getting married around 40. I don't have any particular desire or ideal vision of marriage.
He was as handsome in character as he was in looks. Popular but never boastful or arrogant. I was genuinely curious about what kind of woman Lewis would eventually marry. Even after my divorce from Dan was finalized, I kept getting updates from my junior, Bob. He loved gossip and was known as Smith Foods' very own entertainment reporter. "I'm so tired. What's for dinner tonight?" "Order delivery." "I'm tired too." I heard that Dan, now married to his mistress Natalie, was struggling. He had been handed the reins of the cafe, her father's business, and was already facing difficulties. Dan had initially been enthusiastic about turning the business around, but he couldn't fully commit to the job, finding it uninteresting. "Tired? That's because you've been out and about, not doing housework. You wanted to do it perfectly and even stopped working at the shop, but in the end, you didn't do anything. I'm only 22, you know? My friends are still single. I'm not going to be tied down at home." Their marriage was clearly not going well. 3 years after my divorce from Dan and his marriage to Natalie, they were still together, albeit unhappily. "Wow, here?" Julie was understandably surprised. I was even more so. Julie and I were standing in front of Lewis's family mansion, having been invited over. The house was enormous. "Hey, welcome." Lewis greeted us warmly, his charm just as evident in private. Meeting Lewis's parents and having a pleasant conversation with them, it suddenly dawned on me. "Your father is from Smith Foods, right? You didn't use the Smith surname. Was it to avoid being known as the president's son?" I couldn't just become the president overnight. I wanted to start from the ground up, to understand what our employees go through. My dad still says I have a lot to learn. I'm really sorry for keeping it a secret until now. No way, this is like hitting the jackpot. Lewis had recently proposed to me, and today I was meeting his parents to officially announce our engagement. "I feel so honored that you would marry someone like me, a divorced woman with a daughter." "Why are you being so formal?" "Just be your usual self, Rachel." Lewis lightened the mood, and we spent the day with smiles. Lewis had always been there to listen and advise me during the rough patch with Dan. Our growing closeness seemed inevitable. My biggest concern about remarrying was Julie. Would she need a new dad? Why does Lewis have to leave? Why can't he just stay with us? Julie had asked earlier. It seemed that her memories with Dan were being replaced by those with Lewis, elevating his place in her heart. Then one day, Julie called Lewis Dad and expressed her wish for him to be her father. That's how Lewis and I started preparing for our marriage. "What? Rachel and Lewis getting married?" That was Dan's initial reaction when our junior colleague Bob, a gossip lover, told him about our wedding. "When did this happen?" "Rachel doesn't like guys like Lewis. She used to say he's too skinny and unreliable. She needs someone like me who goes to the gym. We're complete opposites. Rachel's taste in men is so inconsistent. She just goes for any guy who says he likes her. She's not even that pretty, and she's got a kid, and she's in her mid-30s. A younger, prettier woman without a kid is obviously better." What is Lewis thinking? With his looks and brains, why a divorced woman with a child? What's his angle? They'll break up soon, maybe in 3 years. Me and Natalie? Dan was evasive when it came to his own affairs. But Bob skillfully managed to draw the conversation out. After all, even though it's a small cafe, people say the prices are high. The coffee taste isn't that bad either. That's why I've kept the prices high, but the customers don't seem to understand. They wonder why good drinks can't be cheap. But the scale is just too different. I used to work for Smith Foods, a big food company, you know? Dealing with a coffee for $5 each, that's just small fry. And about Natalie, are things going well with her? Since the beginning of the marriage, there was an uneasy atmosphere, but it has somehow lasted for 3 years. Things aren't going well with Natalie. She's young, with a wide social circle, and won't listen to me. Her parents just dumped the failing business on me and turned a blind eye. We're like a couple in name only. I tend to get obsessed and then lose interest quickly. Natalie can't leave me now that I've taken over her father's failing business. She should be grateful to me, but we barely have a marriage. No housework, no marital life. A housekeeper? Impossible, her family isn't that rich. Just because someone calls themselves a president doesn't mean they're wealthy. I was astounded by how freely he talked to a junior colleague. Hearing such complaints about his wife and work made me even angrier. Dan was clearly upset about my happy life with Lewis. He hadn't accepted the fact that I was remarrying Lewis. Then, 3 years later, "There's something important I need to discuss." I got a sudden call from Dan. It had been about a year since I last heard from him. "I'd like to see Julie at least once a month. I can't afford a lawyer, so I want to talk to you directly." His sudden interest in Julie seemed too convenient. He never mentioned wanting to see her in the past 6 years. Probably some trouble with Natalie made him think of Julie. I later found out that at this time, Dan was under a lot of pressure both at work and at home. I'll have to ask Julie. She barely remembers you as her dad since you separated before she started elementary school. She's close to Lewis now. If she says no, you'll have to accept that. What does Julie say about me? Why would she talk about you? You think too highly of yourself. When I asked Julie, she didn't want to see Dan. I told him her honest answer. Is that really what Julie said? Or are you making her say that? Or maybe you're lying to me. What can I do to make you believe me? After I said that, Dan was left speechless. For a while, there was no contact from him, so I thought he had given up on meeting Julie. Yet, today, he was lurking at the gate of Julie's elementary school. Julie was in a wheelchair, and Dan mistakenly assumed she was disabled. She had injured herself skiing on our recent trip to Switzerland and was using the wheelchair just until she recovered. But Dan made a very rude comment about it. What's all this commotion? Lewis arrived in a luxury car to drop off Julie. Why such a fancy car? Lewis, really? Lewis is the son of the president of Smith Foods. He's set to take over as president soon. What? Lewis is the president's son? He never hinted at that. Why did he keep it a secret from us? Was it because he thought we would act differently around the president's son? That's just arrogance. Even changing his name. He should have worked at another company if he wanted to start from the bottom. If he doesn't have the guts for that, he shouldn't be president. Lewis is too soft. Dan ranted, seizing the opportunity to complain about Lewis. Even when we were married, he always badmouthed Lewis. What are you doing here? If you don't have business, please leave. I can call the police for suspicious behavior. You're just showing off because Rachel's here. You don't look good at all. I'll excuse myself then. I came to see Julie. She's my child, I have the right to see her. I already told you, Julie doesn't want to meet you. Whether that's true or not. And I don't want her to meet you either. You chose your mistress over a still young Julie. I think you're unclean for that reason. You barely attended Julie's kindergarten events. Do you have any idea how lonely she felt? Do you know what she said the first time she wore her school backpack? She wondered if you would be happy to see her. After that day, she stopped talking about you completely. I said, holding back tears. I not only worked a day job, but I also worked as a web writer from home to ensure an income. I was so busy with housework that I hardly had time to talk with Julie. I made her feel lonely too. So that's why you married wealthy Lewis. I didn't even know Lewis's father was the president until we decided to get married. I was drawn to Lewis's kindness and warmth. Even if he weren't the president's son, I would have married him. You and Lewis have been together since you joined the company as new employees, weren't you? This kind of thinking is pointless. He's just trying to find a loophole to gain an advantage because he's at a disadvantage. Now that I think about it, there are a lot of things that make sense. She just happened to start dating and then marry me when she was having a little fight with Lewis.
Maybe that's the real story, huh? That's a far-fetched story. We have nothing to be ashamed of in our relationship. Just a man chaser, huh? You always pick men from the same circle. Married 2 guys from the same PR department you joined. You should broaden your horizons. And what about your marriage? Married a girl 10 years younger, abandoning Julie. She's probably tired of you by now. That's typical for you, isn't it? Happy just to win someone over, but then you lose interest. The classic once you've caught the fish, you don't feed it mindset. This conversation is a waste of time. I'm leaving. Running away, huh? Figures, you can't have an equal conversation with me. I'm not interested in small fry. I heard your rice ball shop is in trouble. Good luck with your presidency. I have bigger business goals in mind than a $5 coffee.
In the end, Louis had the last word. I got emotional too. Dan's greatest punishment for abandoning everything for his mistress was that he would never see his own daughter again. And as Louis said, Dan's cafe went bankrupt. Dan, now the president, was saddled with debt. He had been tricked into taking over Natalie's father's failing business. Dan was deceived because of his own ulterior motives. Natalie, having found a new boyfriend, left him and filed for divorce. Then came a happy event for me. I was pregnant with Louis's child. Though it was a late pregnancy, both Louis and I were overjoyed. His parents were happy about that. And Julie was thrilled, which comforted me. I don't regret marrying Dan. After all, he gave me Julie, the greatest treasure.
What do you mean by keeping your son handcuffed?
I went to help my son's family move one day. To my surprise, I found my 4-year-old grandson handcuffed in an empty house. My grandson was crouched down, surrounded by empty bread bags and a foul smell. Seeing this, I called my son furiously. However, he seemed confused.
Huh? We've already moved out of there. What?
The identity of the handcuffed child turned out to be quite alarming. I had been widowed a few years ago and now, at 62, lived alone, working twice a week as a hobby class instructor. I enjoyed my job, known affectionately by my students, and it was a source of fulfillment outside of work. My main joy in life, besides my job, was my 4-year-old grandson, Nick. One day, after finishing work, I checked my phone and found a message from my son, Bob, showing the cute birthday party of my grandson.
Nick is already 4 years old. Happy birthday! Can I bring him a present next time?
Bob replied, come over any time. At 34, Bob had worked hard to secure a respectable job and was living in the next city with his family. I wasn't very close to his wife, Jennifer, and saw her maybe twice a year. Without a specific reason, I found it hard to visit. A week later, I bought a character toy for Nick's birthday and some local sweets that Bob liked, and visited their house after a long time. As I opened the door, Nick ran towards me, his face lit up with joy. Grandma. I was delighted and hugged him.
It was your birthday, wasn't it? Happy birthday!
Then Jennifer came and took Nick away from me. Nick, let go.
Hello, Emily, thank you for coming today.
She smiled, but her words felt cold.
Jennifer, I'm glad to visit.
It's been a while, Bob. Pretending not to notice her attitude, I went to the living room and handed Jennifer the sweets and Nick the wrapped toy. Nick's eyes sparkled as he unwrapped it. And he immediately started playing with it. Mom, Nick is really happy. Thank you.
That's fine. I don't see him often, so it's the least I can do.
After that, we were having a light-hearted conversation, watching my grandson play happily, when my son's phone rang. He said, it's a work call, I need to step out for a moment, and left the room.
Bob is still busy, isn't he? Jennifer, you're doing a great job with Nick.
I tried to talk to Jennifer. But she looked stern and was glaring at me.
Emily, please don't give Nick character toys.
She said this coldly, without expression.
Why? Last time I saw him happy with this character on TV. You don't understand. We're focusing on educational toys so he can follow in Bob's footsteps. This kind of toy is a bad influence.
Jennifer frowned unhappily, and I felt dejected. I'm sorry, I didn't know. But she continued to criticize. And these sweets too.
They might be fine for Bob, but I'm careful about Nick's diet. They have additives.
Okay, I'll remember that. I'm sorry. Bob returned. And Jennifer's mood instantly changed to a cheerful demeanor. Even as we continued talking among the three of us, I couldn't help feeling a bit uncomfortable. So I decided to leave early. As I was leaving, Nick waved, saying, "Grandma, come again." Jennifer gave me a strained smile. Bob and Jennifer met at a speed dating event and married quickly. I was worried about their rushed relationship, but they seemed happy. Jennifer mostly raised Nick alone, and I was grateful for that. Still, her occasional sharp comments weren't new. She must care about Nick. Perhaps Jennifer, being estranged from her own family, was opening up to me in her way. I chose to see it positively. It happened some time later. I bumped into Jennifer and Nick while out shopping in town on my day off.
Oh, Jennifer, what a coincidence.
Is Bob at work today?
Yes, he's away on a business trip.
Jennifer's face seemed slightly strained as she answered. Where are you two headed?
Well, we're going to the department store downtown.
I was headed to the same place and offered, if you're buying something for Nick, let me chip in. Can I come along? Suddenly, Jennifer's expression changed, and she snapped at me.
Hey, Emily! Stop it. It's presumptuous of you to just tag along. I was just. Don't be so overbearing. Don't make decisions for us.
While I was taken aback by her reaction, Nick cheerfully told me, Grandma, we're going to Ryan's house. Is Ryan your friend? He nodded in confirmation. So, you're visiting a friend of yours, Jennifer? Yes, that's right. I thought she could have just said so, but I understood that a mother-in-law might be in the way during a friend's meetup.
Take care, then. Fine, as long as you understand.
And Jennifer quickly left with Nick. Watching them leave, I felt something unnatural about Jennifer's behavior. A few months later, Bob suddenly called.
I'm moving at the end of next month because of work. Does that mean you'll be further away? A bit, but still within reach.
Disappointed that our meetings might become even less frequent, I offered. Let me at least help with the move. Thinking I could at least help clean up, I asked Bob about the moving schedule. On the day of the move, I went to their house eager to help. But no one answered the doorbell, and there was no moving truck. It's a moving day today, right? Feeling something off, I used the spare key Bob had given me before to enter the house. Inside, it was empty. What's going on? Where are they? Confused, I went inside and was stunned by what I saw in the living room. A small child was handcuffed and crouched, facing away from me.
What? Why?
The child turned around, and I recognized the dirty face.
Nick!
Approaching my startled grandson, he moved away in fear. I thought it best not to frighten him and called Bob, trembling.
What do you mean by leaving Nick handcuffed?
What are you talking about?
I'm at your house right now. Don't play dumb.
Bob sounded confused as he replied.
Wait. We've moved out of there. What?
He explained that the move had been brought forward due to work, and he had messaged me about it weeks ago. Indeed, I then remembered receiving a message from my son a few weeks earlier saying, the move has been brought forward. I must have missed it.
And Nick's right here with me.
I heard a cheerful daddy from Nick in the background. When Nick knew it was me on the phone, he cheerfully called out, Grandma, come visit our new house and play.
See, Nick's here. But there's another Nick here?
I was utterly bewildered.
Mom, what are you talking about? Are you tired or something?
Bob's voice softened, as if he thought I had lost my mind.
Should we go to the hospital together next time? That's fine, see you later.
I abruptly ended the call with my son to gather my thoughts and took a deep breath. But, indeed, there was a boy handcuffed right in front of me. If Nick is somewhere else, then who is this child in front of me? I looked closely at the child's face again. On closer inspection, he resembled Nick but seemed slightly older than my 4-year-old grandson.
What's your name? How old are you?
The boy with vacant eyes remained silent, simply spreading his palm out, perhaps indicating he was 5 years old. One of his hands was handcuffed, and the other end was attached to the kitchen sink pipe. He couldn't go anywhere. Nearby, there were empty bread bags and a container resembling a dog's water bowl, creating a bizarre scene.
This is terrible.
The child seemed to be wearing a diaper, and there was a foul smell around. I took photos and videos of the scene, then immediately started to unlock the handcuffs.
Hold on, I'll get these off you.
The child, initially frightened, seemed to realize I meant no harm and quietly watched me. He was obedient and watched what I was doing. The handcuffs appeared to be fake, difficult for a child but manageable for an adult to unlock.
You're safe now. Why are you here?
As I freed the child from the handcuffs, I offered him the food and drink I had, continuing to speak to him. However, he remained silent no matter how much I asked. Just as I was considering calling the police, he finally spoke.
Mommy told me to stay here.
He said that he had been living with his father until a week ago when his father suddenly disappeared. Then his mother appeared, brought him here in the middle of the night, handcuffed him, and left. She returned only once, leaving some water and food.
It's cold here, I'm hungry, and I was scared of being alone.
I couldn't help but hug the tearful, pitiful child.
How could a mother do this to her child? Doesn't she have a heart? Who in the world does this?
As I trembled with rage, the child finally revealed his name. So that's how it is. With shaking hands, I took out my phone again and made a call. After explaining the situation, the person on the other line was speechless but promised to come right away. Later, I took the child to the hospital. The next day around noon, I was hiding in a certain place. Soon, I heard the front door unlock and footsteps approaching. I brought food. A woman holding a supermarket plastic bag entered the living room of the house where I was waiting in a closet. I was quietly observing the situation from inside the closet, holding my breath. But the living room was empty except for the handcuffs. Seeing this, Jennifer's face turned pale.
Hey, Ryan! Where are you? Answer me!
Yes, the boy's name was Ryan. The same friend my grandson had mentioned visiting before. And his mother was Jennifer, my daughter-in-law. Ryan had told me everything. That's why I was waiting in my son's old house, expecting Jennifer to bring food today. Jennifer seemed to be frantically searching the house, opening doors loudly. Ryan isn't here anymore.
Emily, what are you doing here?
Jennifer, startled to see me revealing myself in the living room, looked as if she was about to collapse.
I found the boy.
He's been taken to a proper place for protection. Realizing her actions were discovered, Jennifer clicked her tongue and appeared to be deep in thought.
Why did you do this? Tell me the truth.
Speaking gently to avoid upsetting her further, she suddenly started crying.
Actually, before I met Bob, I was in a relationship with a man named Matt and had Ryan out of wedlock.
Jennifer spoke, looking down, seemingly in pain.
But Matt was abusive, and we split up. That must have been hard.
What happened next?
In the end, Ryan was taken in by Matt. I didn't want to let him go, but I had no income, and Matt forcefully took him away.
She struggled to speak, evidently pained by the memory, but continued.
Even after marrying Bob, I would often visit Matt's apartment because I was worried about Ryan.
The day she said Nick was playing with his friend, she was actually heading to Matt's apartment. She arranged for Nick and his friend to meet regularly, giving them a chance to play together as brothers.
It's sad for both being only children, so I thought it was better this way.
Yet, a week ago, after Matt contacted Jennifer, he disappeared. His apartment was vacated, leaving Ryan with nowhere to live. She brought Ryan to this house, which still had a contract until the end of the month.
I swear, I've had no relationship with Matt since marrying Bob. But Ryan is still a precious child to me.
As I listened without responding, she looked up at me with tears in her eyes.
But I couldn't jeopardize my family with Bob. You're a mother, you must understand.
Jennifer collapsed on the floor, crying. She appeared to be a very caring and devoted mother at that moment.
You said Ryan is a precious child to you, right? Yes, of course.
I coldly responded as I looked at her.
Then why would you handcuff him, make him wear a diaper, and refer to his food as feed? That's...
Her facade of a tragic heroine froze.
I thought you were dedicated to education, but is this how you treat a child? There's nothing I can say.
Jennifer's eyes darted around, sweat forming on her forehead.
And what about this?
I took out my phone, played a video, and showed it to her. It showed Nick and his friend playing in front of Matt's place. And Jennifer's voice could be heard from inside.
You were taking Nick to Matt's, driving boys out, and having an affair, weren't you? Well, this is...
I had found Ryan's apartment the night before and talked to the neighbors. One of them, concerned, had recorded the video.
Can you still say you care for the children? You were having an affair with Matt, right?
Jennifer's face turned red with anger.
Bob knows we're a happy family, right? Please don't destroy it. Don't tell him.
As she desperately pleaded, I brushed her off.
Why should I keep quiet? Because Bob is.
She stopped as the balcony door opened, and there stood Bob.
Because I'm a lawyer? Bob.
Jennifer looked utterly shocked. Yes, my son Bob's profession is a lawyer. Jennifer, who had been calmly speaking, suddenly showed her true colors and glared at me.
Why is Bob here? Did you snitch?
Bob stopped Jennifer as she attempted to lunge at me, her face red with anger.
I heard everything. You've been betraying me all this time, haven't you? It's not what it looks like. Listen to me.
She clung to Bob.
Matt is a good-for-nothing. I was deceived by him.
In her panic, Jennifer blurted out something outrageous.
The only thing good about him was our physical compatibility. And you, with your high-income lawyer job, you're the husband I deserve.
Bob looked at her with utter disgust.
Betrayal is one thing, but handcuffing a child is inhumane. I can't forgive you. No, I refuse this.
She started screaming and acting out like a child, to Bob's dismay.
Jennifer, we're getting a divorce. I'm taking care of Nick. And the police are on their way, so calm down. It's all your fault. If you hadn't found him.
In desperation, Jennifer pulled out a knife from her bag and charged at me. Then, brandishing it, she ran towards me.
Mom, watch out!
In that instant, I dodged Jennifer. She lunged at me, cursing, but I swiftly dodged her.
Don't run, you old hag.
When she attacked again, I knocked the knife from her hand.
Forgot I'm a master of combat sports and run a self-defense class?
I pinned her to the floor as she groaned. And police sirens approached.
Let me go! I'm appalled you show no remorse. Pay for your crimes.
Ignoring her screams, I kept her pinned down. The police arrived, and she was taken away, screaming. Bob and I watched silently. Later, I submitted the evidence to the police. Jennifer had brought other tools to harm Ryan. I was wondering what he was going to do after the handcuffs, but I was horrified when I learned from the police that she had even thought about that. She was arrested, and Matt was interrogated. The divorce was finalized. He's suing Jennifer to ensure child support. Jennifer, having lost everything, will struggle to live a normal life outside. Ryan was taken in by Matt's parents, who seemed decent, so I'm relieved. As for me, I moved in with Bob to help raise Nick. He was initially wary of the change but soon warmed up to me, and I'm teaching him combat sport. I plan to continue staying strong and energetic to watch over my grandson's growth in the coming years.
What's going on all of a sudden? Aren't you on a business trip? I'm kind of busy, so I'm gonna hang up. Wait a minute. Is there something else? You're at home today, right?
Yeah. And you're coming back tomorrow, right?
Yes.
All right then. See you. The call ended. I felt a bit cold, but I wasn't pessimistic. I was actually planning to return from my business trip a day early. Today was my husband's birthday, and I wanted to surprise him with a celebration. But when I got home, a shocking scene awaited me. Huh? Is someone here? While I was pondering this, I could hear voices coming from the living room. And not just any voices. My heart was pounding, echoing through me. I approached the door step by step, slowly. I took a deep breath and peeked through the gap in the door. Why? In the living room, my husband and my best friend were embracing on the sofa. Seeing them in each other's arms, I couldn't leave. The expressions he never showed me, the words he never said, all of it was suffocating me. I will never forgive this. The feeling of worthlessness was soon replaced by immense anger. I took out my smartphone from my bag and recorded a video of them through the gap in the door. Of course, I didn't stop there. I immediately sent the video to someone. That person was my best friend's husband.
They're doing this. That's unbelievable.
I could feel the same anger and helplessness in his voice, even over the phone. But what should we do?
They haven't noticed us yet.
So, maybe. I suggested something to my best friend's husband. He accepted the proposal, and we started our plan. As a result, what awaited my husband and the others was hell. My name is Nancy, and I'm 27 years old, working as a salesperson. It wasn't a job I started out loving, but now I find it fulfilling every day. I switched careers to this job, and my trainer back then was the man who would later become my husband, Harry.
How's it going? Getting used to the job?
Yes. Thanks to you, I've learned a lot.
That's good. Looks like you'll be ready to go on sales calls by next week.
Yes, I will.
Don't worry. I'll be accompanying you at first.
Harry was always kind in teaching me the job, and it was natural for me to be drawn to him. After work, he often took me out for drinks, making me look forward to going to the office every day. Harry seemed to like me too, and about 6 months after I changed jobs, he confessed his feelings to me. Looking forward to being with you.
Me too. Well, at work, since we're colleagues, we'll need to keep it formal, but feel free to speak casually otherwise. Yeah.
I hadn't had much experience with relationships before, so sometimes I wondered if I was good enough for someone like me. But he accepted me for who I was. That's why I placed immense trust in Harry. Another 6 months passed, and a new truth came to light.
What's with the formality all of a sudden? Oh, how should I say this?
Harry looked unusually weak, something I couldn't have imagined from his usual self.
I'll listen properly, okay? Thank you.
What Harry told me next was beyond my imagination.
Actually, Nancy, you're the first woman I've ever been in a relationship with.
What? Really? You didn't seem like it.
I've been managing to cover it up until now.
Harry said this with a shy look, which made him appear really adorable. I wondered why such a great guy had never had a girlfriend before, but I thought it would be rude to ask and kept it to myself. 2 months later, on my birthday, Harry proposed to me. Of course, I accepted immediately.
Here, this is for you.
Thank you. It was a ring adorned with a small diamond. Overwhelmed with joy, I hugged Harry. Are you happy?
Of course I am.
I'm so happy. After that, we rented a new apartment and moved in together. We officially became husband and wife, starting our new life. That's when I got a call from my high school best friend, Adriana. Why didn't you tell me?
About what?
Not about what.
About your marriage. Oh.
Right. I had told Adriana about our relationship, but I hadn't informed her about our marriage.
Sorry. We've been busy with finding a new place and all. That's okay. Can I come over to visit sometime?
Sure, but...
And I've got something I want to tell you, too.
Okay, got it. From past experience, I knew that when Adriana said something like this, it usually wasn't good news. I mentioned this to Harry.
My best friend wants to come over, is that okay? Of course. Thank you.
A week later, Adriana came over. I went to the door as the intercom rang. When I opened it, there were two people standing there.
Well?
This is Hugo, my fiancé.
What?
I exclaimed so loudly it seemed to echo throughout the house. Hearing this, Harry came over.
What's wrong? That was quite a shout. It's okay, don't worry.
Then Harry noticed something.
Huh? Why is Hugo here? Harry! What? Do you two know each other?
More like, we're colleagues at work and friends. It took me a moment to process all this new information. I never imagined that my best friend's fiancé would be Harry's coworker.
Wow. What? It's not often that partners or friends know each other, right? Well, yeah, that's true.
Adriana was visibly excited, her eyes sparkling like a child who had found something rare. Anyway, I invited them into the living room, and we started chatting. The confusion settled, and we shared stories about how we met. And just before they left.
Hey! Since we're all here, why don't we exchange contact information? Contact information?
It's fate, right? Why not? So, Nancy and Hugo, Harry and Adriana exchanged phone numbers. Adriana sure is a lively person, isn't she?
Yeah, she's always been like that. Got me into a lot of trouble back in the day.
But you looked like you were having fun.
Do I?
Soon after, Adriana also got married. This meant more involvement with our close friends as couples. But then, Harry's behavior began to change. I first noticed it one day when he came home from work.
Why didn't you answer your phone? Huh? You called? And have you been drinking?
The smell of alcohol wafted around Harry as he spoke.
Yeah. Hugo invited me for drinks after work. Just stopped by his place. Why didn't you tell me? Sorry. I meant to call.
I thought maybe it was a one-time thing. But what if it happened every other day? Indeed, he started going out more on weekends. This was the beginning of the cracks in our marriage. I also introduced Harry to a chiropractor I used to visit because he complained about back pain. He was tall and had a severe hunchback. But when he came back from the chiropractor, he looked remarkably better.
You look different. Do I? But I do feel lighter. You definitely look more handsome. Thanks.
I was amazed how much of a difference just straightening his back made. And his face seemed to have regained some vitality too. It was when Harry started going to the chiropractor regularly and I accompanied him once. In the treatment room, I had an unexpected reunion.
Could it be Michelle? Nancy, is that you? Why are you here?
I transferred here from another place.
Oh, I see.
Michelle was another good friend of mine, like Adriana. We were all in high school together, but she moved away in our sophomore year due to family reasons.
It's been since high school, hasn't it?
Yeah. I never thought we'd meet here.
Me neither.
Michelle's massage skills were impressive. It was clear she had a lot of experience.
Be sure to come back.
I will. As I was paying, I noticed Harry, who had finished his treatment earlier, was comfortably chatting with Michelle on the couch. I left the place feeling a bit uneasy. On the way home. Wow, I feel really refreshed today.
You do look great. But I wanted to ask you something. What's up?
You seemed pretty close with Michelle.
What? Nancy, you know her? Well, she's a friend from middle school.
Really?
Yeah, but I just found out today she works there. Oh, I see. Michelle is your friend. Is something wrong? No, not really. Let's just head home. I'm hungry.
Though I had my doubts, I decided not to dwell on it further. As time passed, we might become acquaintances. I thought. Life was relatively peaceful, but Harry's late returns were still the norm. As newlyweds, this was starting to bother me.
Isn't it strange you're always this late? What's wrong all of a sudden? We are still newlyweds, you know.
Yeah, that's true. He seemed not to grasp the seriousness of the situation. But that wasn't all.
It's like it's none of your concern.
That's not true. I've been thinking about a lot. Can't help it. A bit early, but...
Huh?
Harry handed me a small box. It reminded me of the one he had when he proposed. I opened it and found a ring inside. Small but brilliantly shining.
But why? You forgot? Day after tomorrow is Nancy's birthday, right?
I completely forgot.
I've been asking Hugo and others for advice on what to give for your birthday. Yes, I drank and came home late, but it wasn't because I disliked Nancy.
Really? Really. Harry gently hugged me after saying that. It was more than enough for me. I felt Harry's love for me anew. After giving me the ring, Harry started coming home earlier and stopped coming back drunk. I really thought everything was finally settled. Months passed and the season changed to a cold winter. On Christmas Eve, we decided to gather at our house. It was Harry and me, Adriana and her husband, and Michelle. After enjoying some drinks and having a great time, Adriana, already feeling good, made a suggestion. Why don't we all go for a walk a bit?
That sounds nice. Nancy, what do you think?
I think it's a great idea. Then let's go early. We headed to a nearby park. As we got close, the place was crowded with people because of an event.
There are so many people here. Indeed. We should stick together so we don't get lost.
As we walked towards the park, we quickly got separated. I had left my phone at home since it was only a 10-minute walk. Why do I always forget it at times like this? I pushed through the crowd, looking for Harry and the others. Unable to find anyone, I sat down on a bench at the edge of the park. Where could they be? I heard whispering behind me. Turning around, I saw several trees, like a forest. Squinting, I could make out the shadows of a man and a woman, apparently kissing. Suddenly, someone spoke to me, nearly making my heart jump out of my chest. Nancy? What are you doing here?
Oh, Hugo!
I got separated and was looking for everyone when I saw you. I see. I glanced back at the forest where I had seen the two people, but they were gone. For now, we decided to head back to the entrance. After waiting about 10 minutes with no sign of the others, we decided to search again.
Shall we search again? Yes, let's do that.
We went around looking for the other three once more.
Oh, do you have your phone? Yes, I do. Oh, right. Why didn't I think of that?
Hugo tried calling Harry and Adriana, but neither answered. He had exchanged numbers with Michelle today, so he called her. Michelle answered right away. I took the phone.
Michelle? Where are you?
Well, near the big tree.
And the others?
Leave it to me.
Wait.
The call ended. I told Hugo about the call, and we both puzzledly headed back towards the bench. There, we found the three of them sitting on the bench.
You were here all along? We've been looking for you too.
Yeah, but we couldn't find you anywhere. While the two of them were saying this, Michelle was silent.
Michelle? Is something wrong?
No, nothing.
Okay.
I felt something was off with Michelle's behavior at that time. Afterward, the five of us returned home. Throughout the journey, Michelle was very close to Harry. She made gestures like linking arms with him, and Harry seemed to reciprocate. Seeing their expressions was frustrating for me. When we arrived home, we decided to take a nap until morning. We all ended up sleeping in the living room, with Michelle sleeping close to Harry. We slept until noon the next day.
We really overslept, huh? Is something wrong, Adriana?
No, why?
Well, you just seem a bit grumpy.
No, it's nothing. While talking to Adriana, I noticed Michelle laughing at us from the back. Harry was also smiling and chatting with Michelle. After they left, I confronted Harry. That's not true. Why would you think that?
Huh? You were grinning the whole time.
What are you talking about?
You were happily chatting with Michelle.
There's nothing wrong with talking.
It's not about that.
Enough already. This is getting annoying.
Where are you going?
Anywhere's fine. Harry took his wallet and left. This was the real start of hell. Harry hardly came home, and when he did, we only had brief conversations like work updates. He usually returned when I was asleep. Anticipating this, I waited for him in the living room. What? You're still up?
I wanted to talk.
Talk? I don't have anything to say. I'm tired, let me sleep.
Wait, we can at least talk.
Harry got increasingly irritated and did something unthinkable.
Hey, what are you doing?
What? It's none of your business. Harry had never referred to me in such a way.
Stop it, please.
Ignoring me, he threw the photographs we took on our trips, which I had cherished since our marriage, into the trash can. Not just that. He also carelessly threw away the engagement ring and other items, as if they were garbage.
Stop it!
I covered the trash can with my body. Harry kicked the trash can. It wasn't too big, but the impact sent me flying.
Why did I even marry a troublesome woman like you? What are you saying?
His eyes didn't look kind like Harry's anymore. He seemed like a different person, and I was terrified. Because I was covering the trash can, I felt pain in my abdomen. Seriously, how long are you going to stay like that? You're in the way.
Do you realize what you're doing?
Yeah, I do. From now on, you're going to listen to what I say, right?
That's not going to happen.
Harry then went to the bedroom and, unbelievably, went to sleep. Meanwhile, I rubbed my stomach and gathered the memories that were thrown in the trash can. I couldn't put them back in their original place, so I stuffed them into a bag I found nearby. I didn't like storing them this way, but I wanted to avoid them being thrown away again. Of course, I wasn't just going to stand by after this. The next day, I used my lunch break to prepare divorce papers. There was no bright future in staying with Harry. I waited for him to come home. He was late as usual, arriving past midnight. I'm home. Welcome back. Oh, you're still up?
I have something important to talk about. Sit down.
Huh?
I don't have time for this. Just sit down.
Fine. I managed to get him to sit down. We sat facing each other, but Harry was in a bad mood the entire time. I took a deep breath and faced Harry. Here. I handed him the prepared divorce papers. What's this? Divorce papers.
Why?
After what happened yesterday, this is the only option. I can't take it anymore.
Wait a minute.
No way. And you're cheating with Michelle, aren't you?
What? What are you talking about?
You were always so happy talking to her, and you were all lovey-dovey with Michelle. I was convinced that Harry was cheating on me with Michelle.
Aren't you misunderstanding something?
Sure, we talked, but that's only because she started the conversation. That doesn't mean you're not cheating. Are you serious? Harry seemed unfazed. If you doubt it so much, why don't you ask Michelle? But if you two are in cahoots, asking won't mean anything. All right. Harry started making a phone call. Who are you calling? Just be quiet for a little while. 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Wondering who it could be at this hour, I went to the door. There stood Michelle.
Michelle! So that was your phone call earlier.
Can I come in?
Sure.
Now it was me, Harry, and Michelle. I was a bit tense, but I couldn't back down.
Can you explain what this is about? I'm a witness that Harry isn't cheating. Right?
Yes.
Nancy, we're not having an affair. I can't believe this.
It's true.
Well, actually, never mind.
Huh?
So I told you, didn't I? We're not in that kind of relationship.
If you really can't believe it, suing is an option.
But ultimately, it's Nancy who will suffer.
Michelle's eyes, looking straight at me, didn't seem to be lying. Maybe I thought so because we had been friends for so long. However, I was still in doubt. Even if what Michelle said was true, the fact that Harry had disregarded what was important to me hadn't changed.
Then why did you throw those things in the trash? That was, well, not because I disliked Nancy. I was out of my mind at that moment.
Harry stood up and apologized. It almost made me feel like I was the bad one. As I was thinking this, I noticed Michelle looking at me, trying to convey something. I had never seen her so serious before.
Please, forgive me.
All right.
But there won't be a next time.
I understand. Since then, we have been having relatively peaceful times, I think. Amidst this, my business trip got scheduled.
I'm off, then. It's 3 nights and 4 days, right?
Yes.
Take care.
I left for the business trip. It went smoothly, and I was able to return a day earlier than planned. Returning a day early meant I could celebrate Harry's birthday. I kept my return a surprise. However, since it was Sunday, I would be in trouble if he wasn't home. So I called to check his whereabouts.
What's up all of a sudden? Aren't you on a business trip? I'm a bit busy, so I'm gonna hang up.
Just wait.
Is there something else? You're at home today, right? Yeah. And you're coming back tomorrow, right?
Yes. All right then. See ya. The call ended. I felt a bit cold, but I wasn't pessimistic. I was preoccupied with celebrating Harry's birthday. I couldn't buy a big cake, but I bought a small one. I also bought wireless earphones he had wanted as a gift. But when I returned home, a shocking scene awaited me. Is someone here? While pondering, I heard voices from the living room. Not just any voices. My heart was pounding, echoing through me. I slowly approached the door. Taking a deep breath, I peeked through the gap in the door. Why? In the living room, Harry and Adriana were embracing on the sofa. Why are those two together?
But that conversation earlier was so funny, wasn't it?
Right?
It was a masterpiece. And to think she suspected Michelle.
Well, thanks to that, we can be together like this. Indeed. So that was what it was all about. After that conversation, they began to passionately love each other again. Watching them, I was so confused that I couldn't move. The expressions they showed each other, the words they exchanged, it all suffocated me. I told myself to calm down and took a deep breath. Then, slowly, anger began to well up inside me. I will never forgive this. I felt ashamed for having doubted Michelle, but forgiving them was not an option for me now. I took out my smartphone from my bag and recorded a video of the two through the gap in the door. But I didn't stop there. I had an idea. I decided to send the video to someone. It was Adriana's husband, Hugo.
Did you see the video I just sent? She's doing this.
Unbelievable.
She's been deceiving me. No, it's worse than that, Harry.
I could feel the same anger and helplessness from Hugo over the phone. But what should we do?
They haven't noticed us yet.
So, maybe. I suggested something to Hugo. He agreed to the plan, and we started our actions. What awaited the husbands was hell. I quietly left the house and waited for Hugo's arrival. Sorry, I'm a bit late.
No problem. Are you ready?
Of course. We entered the house again. From the living room, we could hear their intimate noises. Peeking through the gap, I felt nauseous.
Are you okay? Thank you. I'm fine.
Hugo's fists were trembling, perhaps from the force of his grip. By the way, is Hugo okay? Yeah. He's fine. He's quite oblivious. I see. He's good at his job, but he's too serious and boring. That's harsh. It's okay. I'm just using him as much as I can. Unable to bear it anymore, Hugo opened the door and barged in.
What the hell are you two doing?
Hugo looked like he was about to hit them. He must have wanted to. But he spoke calmly instead. The two were frozen, unable to comprehend what was happening. Really, such foolish people.
What?
Well, I guess I'm part of that too.
And weren't you supposed to be on a business trip?
I was supposed to be, but I came back a day early to celebrate your birthday. For this. I threw the present and cake I had bought at Harry.
What's this?
A present for you. Really messed up people. Human trash is what you call people like you. Adriana reacted to those words.
What? It's because you're boring. Harry is so much better than you. Hey!
Hugo, please calm down. So? What are we going to do now? It's obvious. We're getting a divorce right away. The two seemed not to have considered that seriously. They were showing a look of surprise. If so, they were truly foolish.
But wait! What about Michelle?
Adriana confronted Harry. What are you talking about? Even last time, you two had a suspicious vibe, right? It was like seeing myself from a little while ago. Call Michelle here. I sensed this was about to turn into a real mess. Adriana thought Harry and Michelle had an affair, but considering what happened before, that seemed unlikely. Harry called Michelle. She arrived here in about 10 minutes.
What's going on with everyone?
Adriana immediately attacked Michelle. You were having an affair with Harry, weren't you? What? No way. Right? Yes, of course. Then why were you so clingy? Michelle started laughing. Oh, that? Well. What's so funny? Because it's just as I imagined. Huh? My reason for getting close to Harry? It was to draw you out. I couldn't quite grasp what Michelle was saying.
What do you mean?
We all gathered and I suspected something between the two. I was testing to confirm it.
Why didn't you tell me?
Because Nancy, you can't hide your feelings. Michelle was right in what she said. If I had been told, I would have been staring at the two of them. But was what I did too meddlesome?
Not at all.
Well, after doing all this, it might be hard to live a normal life from now on. Oh, right. I have something to ask Michelle. I whispered in Michelle's ear. Ah, I see. Leave it to me. Michelle seems to know things I don't. Then Harry and Adriana reacted.
Hey! What are you talking about?
Nothing important. Aren't you embarrassed, whispering like that? Not at all. Anyway, you'll probably be hearing from a lawyer later. Look forward to it. That's how it is. Can you two leave now? You're in the way. They hurriedly dressed and left the house together. We who remained sat down at the table and took a breather. I'm so tired. But the hard part is just beginning. It's really headache-inducing. Later, we drank canned beer at the house and commiserated with each other. Hugo and I went to a lawyer's office together afterward. With the video I had filmed, our divorce process seemed straightforward. After the divorce was finalized, Harry contacted me.
What the hell did you do?
What? Why so sudden?
Because of you, I had to quit my job.
Really? That's interesting.
Don't you care?
Well, it's your fault, isn't it? Good luck.
We're not done talking.
Goodbye. I hung up and sighed. I also called Michelle. Thanks to her, Harry had lost his job.
What's up?
Thanks to you, Michelle. Harry is jobless now.
Good to hear.
What else did you say besides the video? Stuff about the walk.
Like how the two of them were in the woods that time. Trying to start something in the cold. You know, various things. Seriously? But this will make things easier. How's Adriana?
I also asked about Adriana, and it seems she also quit her job. I heard from Hugo that things were even worse than imagined. After the divorce, Harry and Adriana started living together, but they were constantly fighting and struggling financially. Really just fools. Since then, I've been enjoying my single life. Michelle and I continued our friendship. From now on, I will live happily. My grandson, David, experienced his first winter this year. The weather report mentioned that it was a record cold day. I couldn't help but worry about David and his mother, Yvonne. I hope they haven't fallen ill due to the cold. That night, I sent a message to Yvonne on my smartphone, asking, "Are you and the baby okay? Not catching a cold?" However, despite sending it 2 or 3 times, there was no reply, not even a read receipt. She's always been so responsible, I hope she's not overdoing it. After waiting another hour, I tried calling but to no avail. This is no small matter. Worried something serious had happened, I quickly put on my thick jumper and rushed out to drive to my son's family apartment. There was no response when I rang the intercom, and fearing the worst, that Yvonne had collapsed inside, I had the building manager open the door. The apartment was dark, with only the faint light from the street lamps seeping in. Groping along the wall, I searched for the light switch, relying on my memory. I fumbled for the light switch, but, even after trying several times, the lights wouldn't turn on. What's going on here? I thought, feeling a mix of anxiety and irritation. With no other option, I used my smartphone's flashlight to look around. Yvonne? Are you there? Could it be that they are just out? Just as I was about to leave, I thought I heard a baby's cry from the bedroom. Yvonne? Are you there? I quickly headed to the bedroom.
Yvonne!
There, I found Yvonne, shivering from the cold but desperately wrapping newborn David in a sheet to keep him warm.
What happened?
To my shock, Yvonne's once long and proud black hair was now chopped off, almost completely shaved.
This is terrible. What happened here?
My name is Mary Smith, I'm 61 years old. I've worked as a hairstylist for many years, running a salon out of my home. Chatting casually with my regulars during their appointments has always been the highlight of my day. The salon was originally started by my husband and me. However, he passed away from cancer when he was young. Not long after our son, Harry, was born. Despite the challenges, I raised Harry single-handedly. But Harry didn't make it easy. He often skipped school and got into trouble when he did attend. After graduating high school, he didn't continue his education and instead spent his days hanging out in town. I often wondered if it was a sense of inferiority from not having a father around. Or maybe it's because I wasn't a good enough mother. I always worried about Harry's future, never finding an answer. So, when Harry suddenly said one day, "I want to be a hairstylist," I was so surprised I pinched my cheek, thinking I was dreaming. What's gotten into you? Hairstylists are popular with the ladies, right? Harry replied with a smirk. Guess kids do grow up watching their parents, huh? Regardless of the reason, I decided to take a positive view of my son showing interest in his future for the first time. Harry successfully graduated from cosmetology school and started working as an apprentice at a seniors salon. That's where he met Yvonne, who would later become his wife. Harry was smitten with her at first sight and, after a strong pursuit, announced to me with a confident smile, "I've decided to marry this girl," introducing me to Yvonne.
Nice to meet you. I'm Yvonne. You are a hairstylist too, right? I look forward to learning from you.
Yvonne, with her long black hair and bright smile, was a wonderful woman.
Likewise, I look forward to that,
I replied, instantly liking her. A year after their marriage, Harry expressed his desire to start his own salon. Though he hadn't been an apprentice for long, he seemed to have gained a lot of confidence as a hairstylist.
I want to have my own place and prove my skills.
Honestly, I was a bit worried. I knew from my experience that it's not easy for a newcomer to make it on their own in this industry. But I couldn't ignore the earnest look in Harry's eyes as he talked about his dream. How much do you have saved up? He showed me his bank book with a troubled look and a sigh. Despite having a steady income, he was spending just as much as he earned. With this pattern, he was far from having enough to start his own business. Harry had been squandering most of his earnings on leisure. Perhaps I should have advised him to give up then. But I smiled and said, "Don't worry about the money," indulging his whim. Maybe it was my way of making up for the loneliness of growing up without a father. Truth be told, I hadn't touched the life insurance money left by my late husband. "It's for Harry. You'd forgive me, right?" I whispered to my husband's portrait. One of my regulars was knowledgeable in real estate, so I consulted with her.
That place would be perfect.
It was a property that had been used as a barbershop until half a year ago, but the owner had retired due to old age. The location wasn't bad, and she thought it might be just right for Harry's new start. During the renovation, one of my regulars said, "Use my husband, he just lazes around the house on his days off anyway." Another chimed in, "My son's studying architecture in college and is home for the summer break. He can help out too, get some hands-on experience." Thanks to their help, the construction went smoothly. Once we got the health department's approval, the salon opened in no time.
I never imagined I could set up my own business so quickly.
You should thank everyone. It's not something you could have done alone.
I know. I'm grateful to you, Mom.
Then, I handed Harry the bank book containing the remainder of his father's inheritance. The purchase and renovation costs were lower than expected, so there was still more than half left.
"This is a gift from your father to you. Use it wisely for business expenses, and don't you dare waste it."
Yeah. I'm not a kid, I get it," Harry said, chuckling in annoyance.
"Don't worry. I'll keep a close eye on Harry to make sure he doesn't spend the money foolishly,"
Yvonne said with a bright smile. Her words made me laugh. With Yvonne's help, I didn't need to worry about interfering any further. I optimistically decided to watch over their business from a distance. But soon, I realized my optimism was misplaced. Yvonne occasionally visited my salon to update me on their progress, and each time, her expression grew more somber. 3 months after Harry's salon opened, she confided, "Harry's not putting his heart into the work."
"What? Harry? Why?"
He was so enthusiastic at first, sure that his skills would bring in customers. But within a month, he stopped smiling and began treating customers coldly. As a result, our reputation has plummeted, and customers have stopped coming. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Harry had wanted his own salon so badly. What had changed in such a short time? Harry thought that being a good hairstylist was all it took, but running a salon is more than that. Yvonne sighed. Indeed, she was right. Business doesn't work just the quality of your work. Customer service plays a huge role in business. It seemed Harry was missing that fundamental understanding. So, what's Harry doing now? He's frustrated about the lack of customers and spends his days drinking. If he doesn't get his act together, we'll lose even more clients. Right now, I'm handling the customers we do have, but if our reputation keeps dropping, the business will only get worse. Yvonne explained, looking like she was on the verge of tears. I felt the same way. All right, I'll have a serious talk with him next time I see him.
Thank you so much,
Yvonne said, bowing deeply before brushing back her long black hair.
Your hair is always so stunning,
I commented, trying to lighten the mood. I started growing it out in middle school, she said proudly. Been that long? Any particular reason? Are you familiar with hair donation? Yvonne looked at me earnestly. Hair donation? I think I heard about it at a hairstylist's meeting, but I don't know much about it. Yvonne's eyes sparkled as she explained. It's about making wigs from real hair for children who've lost their hair due to congenital diseases, illness, or accidents. I've been growing my hair to donate to organizations involved in this. Isn't it wonderful to be able to help someone? I read an article about an actress who was doing it, and I thought maybe I could do that too. Wow. That's really admirable, especially for someone as young as you, I said, overwhelmed by Yvonne's passion. 6 months into her marriage with Harry, Yvonne got pregnant. She's always been so conscientious, always pushing herself too hard when I'm not looking.
Yvonne, this is the most crucial time. You really shouldn't overdo it.
I repeatedly warned her. Every time, she'd just lightly laugh and say, "Don't worry. I'm taking it easy, consulting with the baby in my belly." But in reality, Yvonne worked at the salon right up until the last month of her pregnancy, supporting the family while Harry's attitude worsened. What is he even thinking? Every time Yvonne updated me, I felt my own shortcomings as a mother. One day, I finished work early and decided to check on their salon. I ran into Harry just as he was about to leave. "Where are you going?" "Out for a drink." "There won't be any more customers today anyway," he said nonchalantly, laughing off his situation. The lack of customers had become normal for Harry, and he wasn't even trying to improve things anymore. "You're about to become a father, you know." Harry just waved his hand dismissively and hopped on his motorcycle.
We're not done talking. Think about Yvonne for once.
Yeah. I'll do that when I feel like it. He laughed and sped off. Inside the salon, Yvonne was cleaning the floor. "Today, we managed to get just one customer," she said, smiling brightly despite looking exhausted.
Are you eating properly? You need to get enough nutrition.
"Don't worry about me. It's not just about you. It's for the baby," I said sternly, making sure she understood the gravity of the situation. Yvonne teared up a bit and thanked me. At times like this, the father should be there to support her. I wanted to shout at Harry, who was nowhere to be found. Yvonne told me the salon wasn't doing well, and Harry was spending money recklessly every night. Giving that bank book to Harry was a mistake. I regretted my decision. Yvonne, despite being busy, never neglected her hair care. Gently stroking her belly, she said, "I want to teach my child the joy of helping others." That's when I realized I wanted to support her. Since my son wasn't of much help, I decided to assist Yvonne at their apartment. "I'm always sorry to trouble you."
Don't worry about it, just focus on the baby.
It was my fault for not raising my son right. Because of that, Yvonne was suffering. Perhaps it was my way of atoning for my sins, at least. At the end of summer, Yvonne went into labor earlier than expected and was rushed to the hospital. Harry was nowhere to be found, unreachable. I kept sending him messages, but there were no replies, not even read receipts.
What on earth is he doing at a time like this?
Yvonne's parents had passed away, so I was the only one who could be there for her.
Don't worry, Yvonne, I'm here.
I kept encouraging her as she bravely faced childbirth. After a long and difficult labor, I was overwhelmed by the sound of the baby's cries.
He's born. You did it, Yvonne.
I was moved to tears, but Harry, who should have been there, never showed up. My grandson, David, was experiencing his first winter. The weather report said it was a record cold day. No wonder it was so chilly that I had trouble getting out of bed. My first thoughts were of Yvonne and newborn David. I hoped they weren't affected by the cold. Worried, I sent a message to Yvonne that night.
Are you and the baby okay? Haven't caught a cold?
But even after sending 2 or 3 messages, there was no response, not even a read receipt. I was concerned that Yvonne might be too ill to move. She's always been so responsible. I hope she's not overdoing it. After waiting another hour, I tried calling again, but the result was the same.
Something's not right.
Without a second thought, I put on my thick jumper and rushed out to their apartment. When I arrived, the place was engulfed in darkness. It's not uncommon for families to travel abroad during the holidays, but I hadn't heard anything about a trip from Yvonne and Harry, and they likely couldn't afford it anyway. I rang the intercom, but there was no response. Fearing Yvonne might have collapsed, I immediately asked the building manager to open the door. "I'll wait outside. Please let me know if there's anything," I told the manager before stepping inside. The apartment was dark, the only light coming from the street lamps outside. I remembered the light switch was right by the entrance. Relying on my memory, I groped for the light switch on the wall. But no matter how many times I flipped it on and off, the lights didn't respond at all. What's going on here? I thought, feeling a mixture of anxiety and irritation. With no other option, I used my smartphone's flashlight to illuminate the room as I stepped inside. "Yvonne, are you here?" I called out in the living room, but there was no answer. Maybe they had just gone out. Just as I was about to leave, I thought I heard a faint cry of a baby from the bedroom. "Yvonne? Are you in there?" I quickly headed toward the sound.
Yvonne!
There was Yvonne, shivering from the cold, desperately wrapping newborn David in a sheet to keep him warm.
What happened here?
When I shone the light on her, I was shocked to see that her once long, proud black hair had been roughly cut off, almost to the scalp. Her eyes, red and swollen from crying, looked at me helplessly. "This is terrible. How did this happen?" I took off my jumper and draped it over Yvonne.
It's okay now. Just tell me what happened, as much as you can.
Yvonne began to speak slowly. She said that Harry had continued his daily escapades even after David was born. Eventually, they couldn't pay the electric bill anymore, and Yvonne, unable to tolerate it any longer, scolded Harry. She had just wanted him to be more responsible as a father. But her pleas fell on deaf ears. In a fit of rage, Harry grabbed a pair of practice hair-cutting scissors and started cutting off Yvonne's hair. At first, Yvonne tried to resist, saying stop it. But fearing any further resistance might accidentally harm David, she stopped resisting. Harry laughed mockingly, saying, "Now you won't be able to show your face in public." I was speechless at my son's cruel actions.
Why didn't you tell me it had gotten this bad?
"I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." Yvonne apologized, blaming herself again.
No, Yvonne, it's not your fault. You're not the one to blame here. It's Harry. You did nothing wrong.
I knew Yvonne hadn't confided in me because she didn't want to worry me. I hugged her tightly, tears streaming down my face. The whole situation was a result of my overindulgence in raising Harry. My heart burned with shame and anger at my own failings and my son's inability to empathize with others. Taking a deep breath, I called Harry.
Hey, Mom. Long time no talk. What's up, calling all of a sudden?
Just wanted to hear your voice. How's everything over there? Are Yvonne and David doing okay?
Of course, everyone's fine and doing well.
I've been calling home, but no one's picking up. Where are you now? There was a brief pause in his voice, as if he was concocting an excuse.
Actually, we're a family of 3 in Hawaii. We'll be back next week.
Hawaii, huh? That sounds nice. I responded, though I knew he was blatantly lying to me. What had I been doing all these years, taking care of Harry? After losing my husband at a young age, I worked non-stop as a hairstylist. It was all to raise Harry into a respectable person. When he expressed a desire to become an independent hairstylist, I fulfilled his wish without hesitation. Yet, Harry carelessly squandered the inheritance his father left, using it for his own pleasures. And even treating his wife and child cruelly. My expectations for Harry turned into profound disappointment.
What would you like as a souvenir? I'll bring you something nice.
Anything's fine. You're coming back next week, right? Safe and sound. Hey, Mom? You sound a bit off. Is something wrong? Mom? Harry seemed to sense something, but I ended the call without responding. I informed the building manager waiting outside of my plans and decided to take Yvonne and David back to my house. Then, I started making calls to every place I could think of. A week later, Harry called me, cheerfully announcing that he had just landed at the airport.
I'm back, Mom. And I've got souvenirs for you,
he said, pretending to be the caring son. But my heart was no longer deceived by his act. That's nice to hear, I replied in a flat tone, though Harry didn't seem to notice anything unusual. About an hour later, a taxi pulled up in front of the apartment. Harry, clearly having enjoyed his solo trip to Hawaii, with distinct tan lines from sunglasses around his eyes, unloaded a bunch of luggage from the trunk. He took out his keys, expecting to enter the apartment where his wife and son should be waiting. He must have thought that once he inserted and turned the key, the door would open immediately. However, no matter how many times he tried, the key wouldn't fit the lock.
What's going on here?
He exclaimed in frustration. I approached him quietly from behind and asked with a smile, Did you enjoy your trip to Hawaii? Though my heart was boiling with anger.
Mom, you're here?
Harry said, relieved to see me, misunderstanding the situation. Listen, Mom. I just got back and tried to enter the house, but the key won't fit. It must be Yvonne's prank, punishing me for going on a trip alone. He tried to paint himself as the victim, blaming Yvonne. Leaving Yvonne, who just gave birth, and newborn David behind, what were you doing? I told you, I was in Hawaii with my family. Didn't you just say you went on the trip alone? I pointed out the contradiction. Harry was at a loss for words.
You really had the nerve to lie about taking a family trip to Hawaii? Yvonne was here, with the electricity cut off, shivering in the cold, holding David close to protect him. And to think, she cherished her long hair, and you just cut it off mercilessly. Don't you feel any remorse as a human being?
I guess I messed up there. But right now, I just want to get inside the house. It's freezing in Japan, Harry replied, rubbing his arms theatrically, showing no sign of remorse. The cold Yvonne and David endured is nothing compared to this. Plus, you no longer have a home here. I've already canceled the lease on the apartment. It's time you find your own place to live.
Canceled the lease? Why would you do something like that without asking me?
Harry protested, suddenly panicking. But the apartment was leased under my name, after all. I couldn't just stand outside and continue this conversation, so I took Harry to a nearby coffee shop to talk further. Harry sipped his coffee silently, probably not even tasting it. He kept glancing between me and his coffee with a pale face.
You were so strapped for cash that you couldn't pay the electric bill, yet you managed to go to Hawaii?
That's... Harry grimaced and finally began to spill his selfish reasoning. He admitted that right from the start of his business, he was showing off to friends and women he picked up at the salon, spending his father's inheritance on his antics. He knew such spending would quickly deplete any fortune. But after getting a taste of the power of money, he continued his lavish lifestyle even after the inheritance ran out, racking up debts to buy gifts and take trips.
You're quite the big spender, aren't you? Especially for a failing business.
Don't worry. I'm a professional hairstylist. Once I get serious, clients will come flooding in, and I'll be able to support my family. Harry replied with unfounded confidence. I looked at him coldly. Your salon? I've already sold it. All the equipment too. It's too late to get anything back. I shattered his baseless confidence.
That's a lie. Why would you do something like that?
Harry's face turned red as he slammed his hand on the table.
Oh? You were planning to continue with the salon? I thought you had abandoned it since you left everything to Yvonne. Besides, I bought the building and land in my name.
You have no right to complain now.
But I was just trying to attract customers. I had it all planned out.
Harry's eyes looked like those of a child about to burst into tears. If you're so confident in your skills, you should be able to start over from scratch. I said coldly, then left the coffee shop after placing money for the coffee on the table. A month passed. Yvonne and I avoided any contact with Harry, but unpleasant rumors inevitably reached my ears. After I pushed him away, Harry apparently ran to his friends begging for money. But they were the kind who gathered around him for his money. Naturally, nobody was willing to help a financially drained Harry. He even got reported to the police for stalking some of the women he picked up at his salon. Although he only received a stern warning from the police, the lack of support from his acquaintances hit him hard, and he completely disappeared from our lives. He's probably living alone now, in fear of harsh debt collectors. All this is the consequence of his own actions. My anger towards Harry isn't just about his reckless spending. What's unforgivable is how he neglected Yvonne and David, pushing them into hardship. And above all, cutting off Yvonne's long hair, which she had grown out for years for a noble cause, thereby potentially robbing unknown children of a brighter future. As a fellow hairstylist, I could never forgive Harry's actions. It will take a long time for Harry to truly understand the emotional pain Yvonne has endured. Yvonne herself never speaks of her hurt, but it's clear she's not unscathed. She appears to be keeping her feelings bottled up, probably not wanting to worry me. Wanting to do something to help, I reached out to my hairstylist friends and had a special wig made for Yvonne.
It won't make up for my son's wrongs, but please use this.
Thank you, Mom, Yvonne said with a smile, though tears were streaming down her cheeks. Using my aching back as an excuse, I asked Yvonne to help out at the salon. She threw herself into the work, seemingly trying to forget her emotional scars.
"Hello, David,"
a regular greeted, and David in his cradle burst into giggles. Now, some customers even come to the salon just to see him. He's like a little mascot, a baby that brings in good fortune. Yvonne, regaining her strength both physically and emotionally, has started the process of divorcing Harry.
Seeing Yvonne smile makes us all feel like we've shed 20 years.
But it's true, Yvonne and David have brightened up the salon considerably. Attracted by Yvonne's cheerful atmosphere, more and more mothers with young children have become regulars.
"Let's have a great day today." "Hi, how are you?" Now, the salon is filled with smiles again. In a quiet corner, David is peacefully sleeping, his cute little snores filling the air.